Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets with Brad Olsen back, and I'm going to read his bio. Haven't read it in a little bit. It's kind of like give him a brief introduction because we've been on so many times, but it's been a little while. So some of you that haven't, on YouTube, I got my YouTube channel back. So some of you guys haven't heard Brad before. So I'm going to go in a little bit of detail about his background. He is a captivating speaker and author of 11 books, including 3 in his esoteric series, Modern Esoteric, Future Esoteric, and Beyond Esoteric, and his soon-to-be released Secrets of Antarctica, which we'll be talking about today. He is an award-winning author, book publisher, and conference speaker. And I can tell you, I have been around him in conferences, and his information is over the top. And also, he's been at the Journey to Truth, Contact in the Desert, Alien Event, Conscious Life Expo, and the Mount Shasta Summer Conference, where I spoke with him one time, and he was in a couple conferences actually, where he's basically he comes in, he heads up like we have round table type situation, and he heads it up, and he is the best, absolutely the best when we have these conferences and round tables like that. All right, so he's also The Truth is Out There, Mysteries of the Outdoors. He has traveled to all 7 continents. He's the only person I know that has, including Antarctica by sailboat, Seeking Adventure, and the answers to the mysteries of humankind's past is what Brad does best. And Brad, such an honor to have you back on. Thanks a lot.
Oh, geez, MJ, thanks for that very kind introduction. Always a pleasure to speak with you. And you forgot to say that publishing the 2 Michael Jaco books in print, Intuitive Warrior and Awakening of a Warrior, 2 fantastic books that you wrote.
Yes, and I will always be thankful to you for that, because they had been with other book companies that had basically stolen a lot of my money from publishing. So you basically you breathe more life into them, and we put more pictures in them. Like we were talking about before the show, how you are an expert at putting visual aids into books, and this is also in your new book here we're going to talk about. But you did it in my The Awakening of a Warrior. That was just fantastic. They told me before that it's like, no, we can't put those pictures in there. I was like, okay, but you came in and just like flooded it with incredible information. So it's quite a great experience being with you on many different levels.
And maps too, which I'm a cartographer myself. And Awakening of a Warrior, every chapter had a map, because you speak about these locations so eloquently in such detail. I thought people got to know this area you're talking about and all these sites. So yeah, I'm big on maps. Of course, they're in my new book, Secrets of Antarctica, and some never before seen in the Western world maps of the Nazi U-boat routes under the ice in Antarctica. This is really breaking some new grounds here with the smoking gun that the U-boats had made it well deep under the ice in Antarctica.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand or realize how advanced the technology is in the U-boats, even all the way back to World War II. It was quite a war, the U-boat war, and they were exceptional. Good captains of boats. They did absolutely amazing stuff. And I was able to, when I was at the Naval Academy, talk to one of the top U-boat captains in World War II, and he gave a speech, and I talked to him personally. The technology on these boats, and I've heard this from a lot of guys over the years, is what they could share with me. And they were kind of like, don't share this. And, at this point it's all out, but I can tell you, I was stunned. So yeah, even back then they were definitely doing some crazy stuff.
And the submarines are very similar to flying discs that can go into inner atmosphere. And I got this from David Hatcher Childress, that in our own secret space programs, they recruit out of the submarine corps, and they're looking for orphans or guys that don't have a family that are willing to go off planet. So this all kind of ties in. All roads lead to Antarctica, as I say on the back cover of my new book, but of course no roads lead there, but all things disclosure related, I think, are going to come out of Antarctica.
Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, you've gone deep down the rabbit hole as usual, and always appreciate that. So where we talked about before the show that we'd like to go and focus on the Nazi aspect. There are so many different aspects that we could go down, and I love this cover. This cover is just incredible. It just really grabs your attention. And then the back cover where you basically just go into all kinds of different crazy rabbit holes. Oh my God. All the ones that I love to be down. Of course, I've ordered the book, and I highly encourage everybody to order the book. It's on Amazon. Is it on CCC Publishing too?
Not
Grady?
yet, just because I don't have physical copies yet, but it's going to the printer by Halloween. So we hope to get your endorsement in there on page 1. And
oh wow, thanks.
I was going to give you a physical copy next time I see you, but thanks for ordering one. That always helps.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so the Nazis down in Antarctica. Now on the Amazon page was an interesting, looks like an article from 1941, where they even talked about how the Nazis were down in Antarctica and how the British Air Force or something came in and bombed them.
Yeah, that was Operation Tamerlane, and they had set up spying stations on the Palmer Peninsula. And that happens to be the area of Antarctica that I went to via sailboat. In fact, I went to 2 of the old British bases, which was Port Lockroy, and there was a building with the Vernansky base, which had once been a British base. And they were spy stations on the Nazis. Yeah, there's the Lowell, Massachusetts newspaper, Nazi bases in Antarctica. You can even see part of the story that ran. So this is 1941, Michael. So we already knew they were down there, and so did the Brits, so did the Russians, that they were just sending ship after ship, submarine after submarine. The ship that gets most of the attention is the initial voyage of the USS Schwabenland. And that one certainly was bringing down personnel, supplies, a plane that could land in the lakes that never freeze. They're called Antarctic oases, and there are several down there. But the Schwabenland area, the new Schwabenland area claimed by the Germans, has this huge ice-free zone called the Schumacher Ponds. And I have pictures of that in Google Earth and on the Nazi maps themselves. So they're going down there since before the war even began. A lot of people don't even know that Admiral Byrd went to brief the Nazis in 1938 on Antarctica. And they even asked him to go on the Schwabenland trip, but he declined. His son joined him on Operation High Jump. This is the very first summer after World War II. They couldn't waste any time to put together an armada, which one press release Admiral Byrd gave before going down there was, it's a mission that is military in nature. Okay. It's not exploration, not to photograph, which they did, but they're going down with an invasion force. And we could do another show on Operation High Jump because there is just so much to it. But I'll tell you, the Nazis were not only setting up shop in Antarctica in more than one location. There was Point 211, also called Base 211, which is a location on the German topography maps in a section called 211. So I know where that is, and I've pinpointed where they put that base. But the bigger one was called the New Berlin base, and that is the one that's under the ice, which the submarine maps have the route and the chart to get to. Wow.
And I mean, I've been reading the book, so it's pretty exciting. I'll share a little bit of it in a little bit, but you talk about how this is possibly going back. Perry Reeves basically had maps, and I've looked at this stuff for decades. The Perry Reeves maps, and it shows Antarctica without ice. So at one point, someone saw it without ice because they've done the topography scans where they push through the ice. which is unbelievably thick, like 13,000 feet thick. How did that happen? That's crazy.
Yeah. 2.5
And they have
miles.
hardly any rain now. So some places haven't had rain in like a million years. You point out in your book. God, wow.
Yeah,
So
those are valleys. Yeah.
So yeah, they more recently they were able to like scan down and see the topography, and Perry Reed's maps were accurate. It's like, wow. And they were written, what was about 1400, 1500, somewhere around in there?
1513.
Supposedly.
Just
Yeah.
21 years after Columbus's voyage to the New World, which, by the way, till his dying day, he thought he found the islands off of India, like Maldives and Sri Lanka. That's why our Native Americans are misidentified as Indians, and by the West Indies of the Caribbean are also misidentified. So Columbus was lost. He didn't even know he found the New World. It wasn't until the Westmuller map, also about 20 years after Columbus, that Vespucci Americo wrote his name on one of the maps. He helped build the map. He was an explorer, and that's where we got the name America. And it's way down in southern Patagonia, the very first reference of the word America.
Yeah. So they think that Columbus, and he had insights into ancient maps, and he used those ancient maps, kind of like the Perry Reed's maps, perhaps, because Perry Reed's didn't do that work. He got ancient maps as well and put all this together. So this is something that is interesting, and you point all this out, and how at some point Antarctica was obviously without ice, and it was very fertile, and there's pyramids there, and ancient cities, and just underground lakes. There's like 500 and something underground lakes, and the fish are just prolific down there. God, what incredible.
With flowing rivers that go out to the sea as well.
Wow.
Because I have to point out, as I do in my conference presentation on Antarctica, that Antarctica has the most amount of geothermal features of any continent of the world. 14 known active volcanoes.
Wow.
And over 100 known geothermal vents. So you have the propensity for these very large under ice domes to be formed from the steam and the heat. And therefore, these lakes never freeze down there, and they continue to flow, just like the Schumacher Ponds. We went to one of the hot springs. It was even written up in the Lonely Planet book. Believe it or not, there's a 256-page Lonely Planet book just for Antarctica. And when we got to Deception Island, it said there's a hot spring there. So when I went ashore with Emily Infinity and Luke Dogg, the two other Americans I was with, we got there, and had the tide been going out, we could have just stripped down and taken a hot spring. But the tide was coming in, so the water was mixing and getting colder. But we walked around with our shoes off and certainly felt the warm water. So there's a lot of volcanic features down there, and that lends a lot of credibility to the Germans setting up a base there. Because with geothermal power, you can create a power plant, and you can use it for bathing or for fresh water and so many other things when you have warm water like that in a freezing continent. So some of those under ice domes, Michael, they could be habitable year round, unlike the surface, which is just terribly cold and windy and inhospitable.
Well, what better way to hide? You can go underground. We've talked about, domes for years, and that was I think down there they have the ultimate dome, and it's natural, and there's big enough to have massive cities under there if they wanted them, which maybe they do. But it's also, as you found out, highly regulated. You can't go in certain areas. It's blocked off, and they'll come show up with like ships and all kind of crazy stuff to make you go back, and they'll come out of nowhere. That's wild.
There was a story about 20 years ago of these two Olympic athletes who wanted to cross country across Antarctica, and they just started striking out. and they must have veered off their course, because everything, you have to tell them where you're going. So when we went down in a sailboat, we had to tell them everywhere we're going. Not that there's anybody watching you or spying, but these two women, they're just kind of cross country and along. It's probably their third week or so. And all of a sudden, your comrades, the Navy SEALs, come down and just land right in front of them and say, well, girls, you're not going any further. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We want to finish our trip. Sorry, you can't. And they made them get on board the helicopter and leave with them. So there are definitely some areas that are very highly sensitive. There are definitely no-fly zone areas, one of which I found out when I was down there is over the South Polar region on one side of it. And in some of the maps that I have in the book, you not only see Admiral Byrd's very first flight. He was the first aviator to fly over the South Pole in 1929. But he gets to the South Pole, wow, and then he goes off about 50 miles in a triangular direction, right exactly where the no-fly zone is today. And so I have other maps of more recent maps of the South Pole Research Station there, where it says that you can fly at 30,000 foot elevation, but you can't fly low. Well, whoever flies over 30,000 feet, there are no intercontinental or cross-continental ocean trips from, say, South America to South Africa or to New Zealand. There's just not. But there are planes that land, even tourist planes that land at the South Pole, and you absolutely cannot fly over this area. Well, Linda Moulton Howe has a whistleblower named Brian S. And I talked to Brian S. for about an hour a couple of months ago when I was working on this book. Great guy. Maybe we can get him on the show too.
Oh, and my God, that'd be amazing. Heck yeah.
Yeah. I'll hook you up with that.
SEAL brother. Absolutely.
Yeah. SEAL brother. So he was there for 20 some years. I mean, this guy knows the continent very well. And there was an emergency evacuation out of the South Pole Station. And they had to, their flight plan was to go around the no-fly zone, but the guy was in a world of hurt. They had to get him out of there immediately. So they defied the no-fly zone. They flew over it. And that's when he saw the massive hole in the ice. But he saw not only the hole in the ice, Michael, but there were cat tracks and snowmobile tracks heading from South Pole Station through the area, which these maps that say you can't fly over it also say you cannot travel in this area. And it's supposed to be an air sampling station. He said there was no air sampling station, but the cat tracks and the snowmobile tracks led to the hole. And get this, they corkscrewed down to the hole. So there's even a road entrance down into it. So that just blew me away. And
definitely a SEAL brother.
A great guy.
Good.
And he had many other incredible stories. Seeing
UFOs. Linda Moulton Howe had a really good show about all that and what she discovered from him. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really great. He's a very down to earth guy.
Yeah.
And he was part of that pickup crew of the missing scientists. That's an amazing story in and of itself. That was out on Marie Byrd land on the Rockefeller Plateau. And there's Rockefeller Plateau. There's also an Rothschild Island on the Palmer Peninsula that I got.
There is.
Of course there is. So these scientists, they're there, and he dropped them off. They set up camp. You never can really leave your camp for too long because the conditions are so harsh. So they go off radar, or they go off radio silence for a couple of days. They can't reach them. So Brian S. flies out there. He sees there's no one in camp. They're like, what the hell? These guys they went off on some trip. They must be dead. They go back to McMurdo Base. And then a couple days later, they get the emergency call. We're here. We're live. Come and get us. They go back there and they are stone-faced, like they've all seen ghosts. But they get on the big cargo plane to fly back to McMurdo, where they're put in quarantine and questioned. But they wouldn't say a word to Brian S. Even went up to one of them, put his hand on his leg and say, what happened to you guys? We were worried about you. We came out here looking for you. They wouldn't say a word, just white as a ghost.
They must have been read the Riot Act. You will not talk. You will not talk.
Or they got into one of these underground bases and then read the Riot Act.
Yeah, I think that's probably what happened. Yeah.
And just like Buzz Aldrin, second man to walk on the moon, he's down there in 2017, and he puts out this cryptic tweet with a picture of the Antarctica pyramid. And he says, "I've seen the face of evil. We are all in danger." And then the tweet came down, and then he gets medevaced out of there. So he almost died in Antarctica, but they got him out of there in time to get medical treatment.
Incredible. Now, on your trip, you talk about it a little bit in the book where you went to this ancient site. And tell us a little bit about that.
You mean in Antarctica or in South America before we
Antarctica. Was it Antarctica that you were talking about where you went out where there was abandoned site? It was old.
Yeah, it wasn't ancient though. It was just one of
ancient,
the Operation Tamerlan spy stations of the Brits.
There you go.
But it was totally, it had been unused for about 50, 60 years. So you walk in there and it's like a journey back in time. There's still canned food on the shelves and all the radar and spy equipment. That was pretty wild.
Like a museum. Yeah, that's cool.
But they don't even lock the door because nobody goes down there.
That's insane. Yeah. So under the ice, obviously, the Nazis were down there, and they were developing. Either they were given, which a lot of us believe, ET technology, or they found it and back engineered it. What are your thoughts?
Well, they had recovered a UFO in the Black Forest in 1933 that the German scientists were already starting to backward engineer. And then a couple years later, in the Lombardy region of Italy, a nearly intact craft was acquired, and Mussolini lends it out to the German scientists. Not only that, but ever since the end of World War I, there were these women in the Vril Society, Maria Orsic and Sigrin, and they had their hair real long to help them with their telepathic abilities. And they too were finding that they were getting these telepathic messages that were so clear that they were able to just dictate the schematics to scientists. And the famous disc-shaped scientist named Victor Schauenberger, he said, this is actionable intelligence. We can work with this stuff that came out of the Vril women. So this is in the 1920s, and then the 1930s, they get these two crafts. They were already working on prototypes before World War II even started. And a couple times during World War II, there were sites of these craft, one of which in the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history outside of Moscow in 1943. It wasn't in a combat position, but it was more of an observation a little bit far off. They did not want it to get shot down and lose it. But at the time, the Russians didn't know if it was Germans. The Germans didn't know if it was Russian. Neither one of them knew that they weren't extraterrestrial, but a lot of reports of seeing this. But turns out they were German. And at the end of World War II, all of these scientists were gone. We're trying to get them for Project Paperclip to come over here and start all our programs. They're up and gone. If they weren't gone, they had a bullet in the back of their head. So when it was all going down, and ever since the Battle of Kursk, High Command, they knew the war was going to be lost. So they had about 2 years to get everything out. That is all the high technology they wanted to keep, all the treasure. There are metric tons of gold that were confiscated by the Nazis in World War II that have never been accounted for, including some priceless artifacts like the Spear of Destiny, which is a whole long story about that. But
Indiana Jones type stuff. Yeah.
Oh man, it was. And so this stuff just goes missing, presumably taken down to Antarctica, where in 1943, Admiral Dolence, who was the head of the U-boat fleet, He said, we have created in one of the farthest corners of the world an impregnable fortress for the Fuhrer. So they knew going under the ice, you can't be seen by satellite, nowadays drones, or flyovers by plane. It, like you said, is the ultimate dumb. And it was already there, ready to go. You mentioned, where did they get the technology to get in there? Well, they did. They were incredibly adept at creating underground bases. In fact, several of those scientists came over and got our deep underground military bases going. They were Project Paperclip Nazis as well, but they were doing it in Antarctica. But there was also, I found several data points that they were given an old defunct reptilian base, also in New Schwabenland. So their mission to base 211 was to repopulate this old base and then retrofit it for their use, which I think they did. And they might even still be down there.
Yeah, I would say so. Man, we could go so many different directions, but I'm trying to like timeline it a little bit. So the Nazis knew they were going to lose in Germany, but they were just going to spread everywhere else. Now we did an excellent show, and it blew me wide open as far as like, the Bush family connection to the Nazis. You outlined all that, their departure from Germany, probably from the U-boats through the Swiss, little rat lines and so forth. And that got them into Argentina. Now they'd been in Argentina since the 1930s. And I did a show, individually just recently about that. I went into that. The Perones basically did Operation Paperclip on their own. So we had Operation Paperclip going into the United States, and we had Operation Paperclip going into Argentina. And we can talk a little bit further into the show about how that's working into Milei and President Trump basically helping him out to, I think, destroy the Nazi influence there in Argentina. But all kind of Bavarian villages, which you outlined in a show that we did earlier, and I went into that. It's unbelievable. So they're obviously leaving and setting up and getting ready to, push their influence in other areas. So down in Antarctica, I think they obviously stayed there and developed their technology to a certain level. Do you think you said they're still there?
Yeah. So get this, about 2.5 years ago at the McMurdo base in the middle of winter, when there's only 1,000 people on skeleton crew at all the bases that remain open year round on the entire continent, about 100 German speaking, mostly men, but some women, came into McMurdo and just said, we got to get out of here. We got to go. This was right at the time. And I know you have Gene Decode on your show, and he talks about them taking out the dumbs, that there were these huge earthquakes on the Palmer Peninsula on the direct route to South America, which Gene Decode says they were taking out the German bases, but also the maglev tubes to escape. So they're cutting them off.
The earthquakes at the 10K level. Yeah.
Your big ones. 10 kilometers below the surface.
When you see it at that level, that's usually an indicator they're taking out dumbs, or they're, like you're talking, maglev, tubes and so forth.
So right around that time, Linda Moulton Howe, as well as Michael Sala, were getting intel that all these Germans were showing up at McMurdo just a week or two after those big earthquakes. So they're probably feeling, hey, we're trapped. We better get out of here.
Desperate, yeah.
And then they flew them out. But that was pretty weird that they would just show up in the middle of winter. And they didn't tell them where they were coming from and stuff, or how they got there. I mean, they're probably just traveling on the cat tracks. That's the main way of transporting over the polar plateau. Just like you see at ski resorts, the way they plow the ski runs, they use those big cat tracks down there as well. But the other thing in South America, so 7 years ago, almost exactly to the month, I was heading down to South America before my trip to Antarctica. And one of the things I was doing down there was looking into all these reported locations where the Germans set up shop. And they call them micronations. This is what John Lear, the late John Lear, he and I had many discussions on the subject. He's since passed away. But I quote him in my book and also in Beyond Esoteric, which I have a lot of this information too, that these micronations were set up by the Germans pre-World War II, during World War II. Perón, the president of Argentina, was incredibly corrupt. He was on the payroll. And then when he then had a successor, then they deposed Allende in Chile and put in Pinochet, who was just as bad as Perón. So they always had a fascist government in South America they could go to. So when I got down to Bariloche.
So I've had on James Files, who was the, one of the assassin group, that he was one of the guys, he shot behind the picket fence and hit Kennedy. So he's former military, and he was basically, contracted and brought in by former President Bush, H.W. Bush, like we've talked about. And he talked about on one of my shows how Pinochet and Peru or those guys down there were basically part of the CIA plan. So the CIA and the Nazi influence is very strong as well.
Very, very strong. And so the CIA, boy, we could go into this, and of course, you know a lot about that, but how they started out the OSS during World War II, and then in 1947 got created by paperclip Nazis, part of the mix of putting together this force. And then the CIA, they start to become beholden to the globalists. So they become the enforcement arm of the globalists. But all the while, they're protecting their own of these rat line escaped Nazis, which I think is the Fourth Reich. They set up another network down there, an intelligence network. Joseph Farrell, the author, calls it Nazi International and coined the term the Fourth Reich. So they were basically setting up these micronations that John Lear was telling me about. And even a place like Area 51 or the Nellis Base in Nevada, not too far away from us, is a micronation that you have to sign papers and take an oath. And you basically, they don't have to report to Congress, and they're outside the jurisdiction of our normal law. Same thing down in South America, in Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. I found locations of these massive land holdings of the Germans. Wow. And so they could be moving their technology, their personnel, and all their loot down there from 1943 on. It wasn't just to Antarctica, but Antarctica was certainly one of their colonies that was linked into these micronations.
Well, the Germans were coming there in Argentina in the 30s, early 30s. Do you think that that was their backup plan if everything went wrong, or they were just expanding all the way back then?
Well, they knew that the governments were pretty much corrupted and could be paid off, at least the ones they wanted to work with. And so,
because they even tried to get the Mexican government to come across the border and hit the United States. So obviously they had a big influence down there.
A very big influence. There was a joke I heard when I was in Argentina, because Argentina and Chile, they've basically wiped out all of their indigenous people. And they're kind of having an existential crisis. Who are we as Argentinians? And they're mostly Southern European children of immigrants, much as we are, but they're more Italian or Greeks or Spanish. So the joke is, we're Italians who speak Spanish and wish we were as rich as the Germans, because down in South America, the Germans have all the money, and they still do to this day. And so we went to some of those enclaves. The most notable one is called La Falda. It's just outside of Cordoba, the second largest city in Argentina. And there is a whole town there where I've been to Germany many times. It's like you're just walking into a German town in La Falda. And there's the big famous Eden Hotel there, where there are pictures of Hitler having dinner with the Eichhorns who own the hotel. So I took the tour. And at the end of the tour, Michael, the guy spoke pretty good English. And I said, well, do you really think Hitler survived the war? And he goes, I don't have to think it. I know it. I said, well, how do you know it? He goes, right here in La Falda, there's an elderly woman who was a teenager in the mid 1940s. And she was working at the Eden Hotel when Hitler and Eva Braun and their dog Blondie even came off a U-boat and stayed there for a while. And of course, they had their SS guard the whole time. A lot of people don't understand. The Third Reich, as a political party, never surrendered after World War II, nor did the SS.
They didn't lose.
Praetorian Guards. I mean, they
didn't lose. Yeah, good.
They never gave up. So they started the Fourth Reich in South America and Argentina, and then there were pockets of them in other countries too. Wow,
this is fantastic. Now, to like solidify themselves in the Fourth Reich, we have Admiral Byrd. Right, there's on your 28th page. Do you mind if I share the screen on that?
Go ahead. This is a first time ever showing the contents of the book. But yeah, for you, Michael, let's do it.
All right, awesome. So here's the Operation High Jump and South Pole cover-ups. So you go into it here, early 1947. The next expedition of legendary American polar explorer Richard Byrd approached the shores of Antarctica on a very strange expedition. Unlike the first three, it was fully funded by the U.S. Navy and had the military name Operation High Jump. Admiral Byrd, a 33-degree Freemason, I didn't know that, led the expedition of 30 ships and 4,700 militarized soldiers. That's interesting, militarized. The mission had 3 task forces that were sent out in different directions and was to last 6 to 8 months. But the fleet started back in just 8 weeks. So that is very, having been part of many operations in the past, that's highly unusual to, in the middle of operation, for you to basically just go back. So something happened.
Something major happened. Yeah. And it was a rout. Did you know that Operation High Jump is still classified to this day? You can't even do a Freedom of Information to find out. So something went down, and when Byrd was on his way back to the U.S. after the 2-month expedition was called short, he did an interview with an American journalist, and it ran in El Mercurio newspaper. It never ran in the West. It was supposed to, but they killed the story. But the Chileans ran the story, and in it, he said that he didn't want to scare anyone, but we have to be used to the idea that there was an enemy that could fly pole to pole at incredible speeds. This is in 1947.
Wow.
I don't even know there's a plane today that could fly to pole at incredible speeds, at least not that we're being told about.
Yeah. There's my tech stuff out there, but that's pushing the envelope, obviously. Yeah. So, they talk about, I guess he wrote about it in his diary. Within a year after that, he's dead.
Yeah. And not only that, but his son published a diary after he died. And his son was actually on High Jump with his father. So he saw it all. He knew it all. And when they got back, James Forrestal was a good friend of Admiral Byrd. They're both Navy guys. And James Forrestal was the very first Secretary of Defense. He knew everything that Byrd saw. And he started stalking the hallways of the Pentagon, saying the Nazis are in Antarctica. They've got UFOs. We're all in danger. Basically what Byrd said in that El Mercurio newspaper. He was then hospitalized in Bethesda. And he was even talking about it to the hospital staff about what really happened at Operation High Jump. And then he suicided himself shortly thereafter. And
wow.
It could be said, Michael, that James Forrestal is the first casualty of the UFO cover-up.
Yeah, and he jumped out of Bethesda hospital, one of the
Naval hospital from the top
Naval
floor,
hospital. Yeah, and then I guess Nixon, they put him in the same room because I guess he was going to talk about some stuff too. And then I guess he quieted down and they didn't throw him out the window. So
Well, and Byrd was given a gag order after he got back from high jump. He would not talk about it ever again. But then he goes back down to Antarctica for the 5th time in Operation Deep Freeze. And this is almost as mysterious as high jump, because I have some military intelligence that I bought from Captain Mark Richards. I'll pull it out.
Oh, nice.
Show it to you. And in it, he says that what it's kind of just all transcripts. Yeah. But what he says was that Operation Deep Freeze, they struck a deal with the Nazis, because keep in mind that there was a big UFO overfly of the Capitol in 1952. So Byrd would have known where those UFOs came from that could fly pole to pole at incredible speeds. Those were Antarctica UFOs. It happened again 4 days later in DC, and they didn't even send up planes to intercept them. So I've got those newspaper headlines in my book. And then so Byrd gets assigned to go back down there for Deep Freeze. And according to Captain Mark Richards in this military document, that the assignment was the Germans, they didn't want to fight a war. They didn't want to have to do high jump again. So they had decided, we'll give you one of our craft. You guys can backward engineer it. And they landed it on a secret ship, and it hightailed it back. And so Byrd eventually came back too. Then he gets on the Longines Watch show shortly after Operation Deep Freeze. And he also speaks in very coded words. He says that there is a land beyond the pole. Okay, well, there is nothing beyond the pole. It is just the polar plateau for hundreds of miles in all directions, what we're told. But he says in his diary too, that he saw the land beyond the pole. And so it just begs the question, what is that land beyond the pole? And so shortly after the Longines interview, Admiral Byrd dies in his sleep at the age of 68 in incredibly fit shape. Dies of a heart attack. Yeah, heart attack gun, CIA, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
So then get this. Then his son, who's been holding on to this information and then acquires the diary, publishes it. Then he is invited to go down to Washington, D.C. from Boston. And he takes a train, and he's going to give the keynote speech. They're honoring Admiral Byrd. He never shows up. Not only does he never show up, he's found dead a month later, wearing different clothes, one shoe, and they say he was dehydrated, and he died of malnutrition. Here's a patrician family that has never had to worry about food, but he winds up in an old Baltimore warehouse, basically frozen solid. He never gave that talk. So they tried to shut him up. I think it was a botched attempt to quiet Richard Byrd Jr., his son, who also died at 68. And so it like with James Forstall, death seems to come early for these people when they have this kind of knowledge about what's really going on down in Antarctica.
Yeah, that's crazy. So then there's been lots of UFO sightings since then. Possible ET, ancient ET cities. They're either covered up with the ice or they're underground, like we've described. So do you think there were Draco reptilian or mixed ET? What do you think is what kind of ETs you think were in Antarctica or still are?
Yeah, probably the whole gamut, because it's a big, big continent. There's a lot of areas that could be inhabited. The Draco reptilian certainly had more than one location. They gave one of those defunct bases to the Nazis. There are the tall white Nordic aliens who look very human-like, but taller and bigger eyes. And there is the domain of the Ariani, which is this area that Admiral Byrd describes in his diary that when he flies down into this hole in the ice that he saw in 1929, he knew exactly where it was. He knew where to come back to it. And when he goes down into it, he's met with 2 UFOs that come wingtip to wingtip, that they were called Fluggerods, but there's no such word as Fluggerod in the German language. Yet these pilots come over his radio and say, don't worry, Admiral Byrd, you're in good hands. We'll be landing in a few minutes at the domain, and with a German accent. And they get out, and there are these 2 real tall, blonde-haired guys, and they escort him into a city where he is met by the master. And the city is some futuristic area. Mind you, this is not necessarily under the earth or in inner earth, just under the ice, under the 2.5 miles of polar plateau ice where this hole is near the South Pole. So he flies in, he lands, he meets with the master, who warns them about nuclear bombs. And you hear this a lot with contactees in post-World War II, that all the aliens are really concerned with is that we have discovered the nuclear bomb. And so is the master. And he says, you're a very esteemed person, Admiral, on the surface world. And Admiral Byrd took pause to that. And he goes, yes, you're in the domain of the Ariani. And we want you to take this message back and tell your fellow commanders at the Pentagon not to play with matches. Don't use these nuclear bombs. It's going to end up bad for everybody. So he says, yeah, of course I will. And Michael, this is at the very beginning of Operation High Jump. And he is then escorted back out by the same 2 Fluggerods and the tall Germanic guys. And the last thing they send to him is Auf Wiedersehen, which is goodbye in German. And then he gets control of the plane. And there are definitely 3 hours of missing time when Byrd went on this very early flight during Operation High Jump. It's even in the records of the operations of Operation High Jump that Byrd was going to make this flight. And there are 3 hours of missing time. So he comes back on the radio. The men must have been delighted. He's a very well-loved military man. Yeah. He gets back to Little America, but as a military officer, he is under orders to carry out high jump. And then they're confronted with these UFOs that come up out of the water a couple weeks later. And so that's the Battle of High Jump, which was very one-sided. And the U.S. government did not ever want this to get out, that we got routed by Antarctica Germans in 1947. And it's still why it's classified to this day.
Wow. And I think at some point, we both are, in connection or with Laura Eisenhower. Yep. Of course, this was during Eisenhower's administration. So Valiant Thor from Venus, right? So, we've done shows together at Mount Shasta. So yep. Those guys talked about Valiant Thor, and they actually had contact with Venusians, and very, very convincing contact. And I've read some of the books about this. They're extremely convincing. It's like, yeah, this definitely was going on. So do you think that Valiant Thor and the Venusians, they came in and basically kind of settled down the situation so it didn't get out of hand, maybe?
Well, of course, Valiant Thor shows up at the Pentagon.
Right.
Remember the Frank Strange's book, Stranger in the Pentagon, in the early 1950s, he shows up and he too is saying, hey, temper the nuclear response. Don't do it. Aliens, including the Pleiadians, all the benevolent ETs have always said, we're not comfortable with you guys having nuclear bombs. Get rid of them. And then we'll share technology with you. But like the Germans, the Americans were just so intoxicated with the ability to get advanced technology from the reptilians, they turned to the dark side. And in America, that's the Greada Treaty. And I've had long conversations with Laura on this because, of course, her great-grandfather reissued the Greada Treaty, but he didn't start it. It actually goes all the way back to 1933 aboard an aircraft carrier in Panama, So actually FDR started the Greada Treaty, and then it went all the way through his administration. It's renewed every 10 years. So then in 43, and then Truman was president with the flyover of DC in 52, when then Eisenhower then gets elected. Eisenhower wanted to find out what was going on in Area 51 during his administration. In the 1950s, they were already keeping him from it. And he threatened to rally the First Army out of Colorado to take it militarily if they didn't let him in. So this is how deep the secrets go and how far back they go, because they didn't even want to tell Eisenhower what they knew was going on or what kind of technology they were testing in Area 51.
So, Jordan Maxwell said that Thor, somebody said this in the chat, Thor went to visit him and claimed that he was fake, and the person playing Val Thor admitted it. So we know that there's always disinformation that goes on. My field is Valiant Thor was a real deal. And then the bad guys don't want everybody to think there's somebody that's going to help them. Right. So, and that's part of the things that happen. So, I like Jordan Maxwell, but maybe he was fooled. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I knew Jordan Maxwell as well. Spoke at his award ceremony. I was the MC to give him his Lifetime Achievement Award. And
nice.
I can only speak the highest praises for the man. He's one of my mentors in many ways, as far as learning all these esoteric subjects. So what he felt about Val Thor, I know he certainly knew that we were in contact with both malevolent ETs and benevolent ones, and whether he thought that Val Thor may have been tricking us or had been from somewhere else, but very much a human-looking ET. There's pictures of him, you wouldn't be able to distinguish him, but he was highly telepathic, and he was there with his brother and another Venusian. These famous pictures of them at a news briefing, and they too were very much, hey, we want to help you guys out. We'll help you with technology, but you got to get rid of the nuclear bombs. You can't do this doomsday stuff. The planet's too valuable to risk with you guys playing with matches here.
Yeah, and he's described as indescribably handsome, and then the women that were with him, the same. There's pictures of him out there, black and white color, of course, but you can. It's all about your own determination about all of this stuff. You can believe or not believe. It's just information we're putting out there. We're really going off down a rabbit hole on a lot of this stuff, but this information to guys like us, it's because I talk about super soldier stuff and my memories of it, and we've been at conferences where again we had a large group of people that were talking about it, and we're all coming to the same, even though we're completely independent, never have talked together before, we didn't know each other. We're having the same information coming through. So you got to start to ask yourself, there's probably something to this, right?
Yeah, there definitely is something to this. It's the greatest secret that's ever been kept. Mm-hmm. And as I say in the book, it's Antarctica could very well play a pivotal role in meaningful disclosure coming out in the world. So if you just fast forward to today, some parts of Antarctica are melting very rapidly. And there are 3 massive motherships down there. I've identified 2 of them in the book that I can say quite confidently are two of the 3 motherships, which were nicknamed by our intelligence agencies way back in the 1970s, Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. And one of them happens to be in New Schwabenland. So as the ice retreats in certain areas, paradoxically, though, it is expanding and raising the level of the polar plateau in other regions. So Mother Nature, in her infinite wisdom, is keeping the balancing act so that the ocean levels don't rise. Because if that sheet of the polar plateau were to slip off of the continent into the ocean, it'd be like pouring a bunch of ice cubes into an already full glass. Of course, it would overflow and then flood our coastal cities. But so there are areas that are warming up, and the ice levels dropping, exposing some of these craft. So that's part of the disclosure. But then also these under ice bases and the scanning sonar. We've heard so much about what they've done on the Giza Plateau, scanning there and then finding these levels and chambers that go on and on and on. They're doing the same thing in Antarctica and finding the same results.
Really?
It's like
wow.
Swiss cheese down there. Yeah. And finding that there's whole environments that haven't been seen before, and animals, as you said, fish and other species that are presumed to live in this environment. So it is really like an alien planet down there. Yeah,
incredible. So yeah, it's there's lots of mysteries down there, and you're disclosing them, incredibly in this book. So what else would you what else would you like to cover in the last few minutes that we have together?
Well, we should do another follow-up interview and go into the details of Operation High Jump and then these maps that I'm reproducing in Secrets of Antarctica. But that book will be out at the end of the year. So why don't we kind of time it for that? But the other thing
we could do one. I don't want to wait that long.
Okay.
I want to do another show right now, but maybe in November we'll do one, and then December we'll do another one. Because you're talking, because I love your information on giants, and you have Patagonia giants in this one, right?
There is.
Tease us a little bit with that.
Tease you a little bit with that. So as I mentioned, there are no indigenous people in Chile and Argentina anymore. Only 1% have survived, including the Fueguean Indians, is what the Patagonian giants were called. And they were these remarkably tall men and women that lived in one of the most inhospitable regions where humans lived, and that is the southern tip of South America. And they were only just like a fur tunic, very minimal clothing in such a cold climate. I was there in the middle of summer, and we were wearing our winter clothes every day. And it's really frigid down there, especially in Terra del Fuego, where these Fueguean Indians lived. And they would light these big bonfires at night. And when the mariners were passing through the Magellan Straits that separate Patagonia and Terra del Fuego, they would see the giants dancing around the fires at night and must have been rather freaked out. That's how it got the name Terra del Fuego, the land of fire, from the giants lighting these fires. I thought I'd be seeing volcanoes and stuff down there, but that's
I know, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. That's a
so
good
the
story.
Other thing I'll just end on that I wanted to bring up when we were talking about the Nazis in South America, not too far away from La Falda, and they're called the Cordoba Sierra mountain range. It's a sub-mountain range in the middle of Argentina. Hardly anybody knows about it. Everybody thinks of the Andes Mountains, and they're the second tallest mountain range in the world. But the Cordoba Sierras are kind of like these foothills in the middle of Argentina. And that's where La Falda is, and these this German village. It's not a micronation because you can just go in there. The micronations are very well sealed, barbed wire fenced. You can only go in by appointment. But not far away is this mountain that we read about in The Lonely Planet. So Emily Infinity and I, my girlfriend at the time, she was traveling with me all the way down to Antarctica and back. We're like, hey, let's go do a night watch to see if we see any UFOs there. So I bought a Ford Excursion, and we were camping out in the back, and we were watching the mountain all night. We didn't see anything. But when I get back, I talked to my friend David Hatcher Childress. He was one of the stars on Ancient Aliens. I said, yeah, David, we went to the Monte Cerrillo mountain on a night watch looking for UFOs, because the Lonely Planet even, and the Lonely Planet's kind of the mainstream media of travel guides. If it's in Lonely Planet, then it's kind of the CNN of travel literature. And in the Lonely Planet book, David, I'm telling them, they talked about people getting abducted from this little town that we went to, and there were burn marks in the grass where these craft landed. He goes, Brad, those weren't alien UFOs. There's a German dumb military base in the mountain there. That's where they were testing in South America their UFOs. He goes, do you really think an alien craft would be seen with rivets in it or would leave burn marks in the grass? The real alien craft don't do any of that stuff. And so this is where they were testing. Yeah, part of the reason why they had it to get Perón to give him permission to set up shop in Argentina.
Wow. And do you think that the this takedown of the Nazi system in Argentina is going to like have a domino effect throughout South America? Maybe.
Well, I sure hope so, because they have gotten away with these dictators who have held an iron grip on many of the countries in South America for so long, and basically allowed Hitler to live out his natural life down there, and Martin Bormann and many others. In fact, we're also looking in the Lonely Planet, going through this big high elevation mining town in Bolivia called Aurora. And what is there to do here? And we're looking through the book. It says, Klaus Barbie, the butcher of Lyon, one of the guys who rounded up people for the concentration camps in France. Yeah, he escaped and he lived out his natural life here. He just changed his name, but there's a little hut behind a sawmill where Klaus Barbie lived out the rest of his life. So there's just all kind of stories about the Nazis. In fact, when we were down there, they found this basement. I think it was in Buenos Aires, but a treasure trove of Third Reich armaments and ribbons, awards, helmets, all kinds of stuff worth hundreds of thousands of dollars on if you were to trade it. So there's still a lot of sediment down there for the Third Reich, aka the Fourth Reich. Yeah.
And the I guess there's a lot of like I think the Norwegian one prince or king or whatever married someone from Argentina not too long ago, and her background is basically part of the Nazi German DNA. So yeah, they're spreading it all over the world. So it's
one big happy family.
Yeah. Crazy. So so people can find you Brad Olsen with an E, SENOLSEN, Brad Olsen.com. That's where you have your main site.
Yeah, that's about me and the projects I'm working on and my upcoming conferences. And then CCC Publishing, where you can get Michael Jaco's books, Brad Olsen's books, and a whole bunch more. And I've got a YouTube. You got your channel back, and that's encouraging, Michael, because
it really is, right?
I was not going to post videos on there for fear of losing it, but you and Laura got hers back, and a lot of other
really
people.
I didn't know that. Good. Yeah. Good for her. A lot of people are good.
So maybe I will start posting videos. But one of our interviews from a couple months ago, Michael, I put it on YouTube and they took it down right away.
Really?
So, I think we mentioned the V word.
Oh, okay.
And that is verboten.
Still. But I mention it all the time now. Now for the savings pre-order price guarantee, what is it going to go up to, you think?
Well, it's $24.95, so that is the cover price if you want to pre-order it now, and those will ship at the end of December. And this book is going to the printer in just a matter of weeks, so no later than Halloween. We've already got our print schedule, so it's definitely in the pipeline. It's finished. I'm just finishing up the index, and it will soon be available as well as in ebook form.
Yeah, you know what I like to do someday, Brad, and hopefully it won't be too far in the future, is like, you have all these sacred places, destinations.
Yeah.
maybe put together some kind of tour where we take people to those places. And of course, if they have the hot springs, like you're like a hot springs, like, you know, those tracker dogs. You're like a hot springs tracker. Like you could smell them out wherever they're at. It's unbelievable. I've been on several fantastic hot spring little expeditions with you. So great time. So it would be great to, like, at some point lead some tours, and you could talk, your information on the different stuff. We can talk, do meditations, and so it'd be fun. And maybe we can get, some other people involved as well. Laura Eisenhower, I don't know, maybe some other people. It'd be fun.
Yeah. All CCC publishing authors. Just do
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Laura, of course, is on the website, CCC Publishing too. Her book, Awakening the Truth Frequency, is doing well, as are yours. And so, and Leo Lyon-Zagami, he's going to write endorsement.
I do some great shows with him. Boy, that guy is just like blowing stuff up now.
Oh yeah, he sure is.
But I've done live YouTube shows with him, and they got massive views. So they're letting us come out with some of this information now. So it's really good.
Good. Let's keep coming out with it.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. As long as, we get President Trump in there, we get another Democrat in there. It's going to get shut down again, unfortunately. But so hopefully we get 8 more years with, I don't know, another Republican. So we'll see.
Right on. Yep. Well, it's the zeitgeist of the age, Michael. This is all going to come out. It's just a matter of when. Absolutely.
All right, Brad. Thanks so much. And everyone that joined us, we had a huge audience. Hope you guys share it. Let everybody know this great videos here. And Brad's great work. And of course, I got a couple books too. So, all right. Lots of love to you guys. And we'll see you guys next time.